New polling is out from the Morning Consult Politico polling that should make Democrats very, very worried about 2024. And I'll get right into it. So, Vice President Harris is viewed more unfavorably than those who favor her. The numbers are specifically, right now, it's 47% of registered voters had an unfavorable view of Harris versus 45% who had a favorable view. So that's pretty bad, especially when you compare it to Biden, who has 52% favorability with 45% unfavorability. So it's pretty rough. I'll break into some of the reasons why I think that might be the case. The most obvious is the fact that right around the beginning of this administration, she was named as the border czar. And when asked if she was going to visit the border, she laughed and kind of deflected and acted like it wasn't going to happen sometime soon, which was really confusing and definitely read as, shifting responsibility or not being willing to put in the work or something like that. Whether that's the case, who knows. But we break even further, when she went to Guatemala and said, "Do not come," to people that would think about immigrating here, that also rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because it was xenophobic and pretty anti-American based on our history of being an immigrant country, like being built on the idea of immigrating here, let alone how that's actually played out. But that is the ideal that we clearly have set out when we read things like the Statue of Liberty's engravement, right? So I think one of the pieces is definitely how she's handled immigration, seeing as she's been politically tied to that from this administration from the beginning. However, I don't think it's just that. I think that when you look at Vice President Harris, you can see somebody who has consistently had very, very bad political instincts. When just to give an example of this, if we flash back to when we were in the 2020 primaries, there was a moment where most of the candidates were kind of unveiling what they were planning to do about student debt, where you had Bernie and Warren to the most left position on this, Bernie saying cancel all student debt, which is the position that I would support. Warren saying let's cancel $50,000 of student debt. Kamala Harris, her version of that was pretty funny, so I'll pull that up here. Back in July of 2019, she said, "Yesterday I announced that as president, I'll establish a student loan debt forgiveness program for Pell Grant recipients who start a business that operates for 3 years in disadvantaged communities." So, that's just, to the average voter, that just makes no sense. So I'm supposed to go start a business with all of this student debt that I currently have, operate it for 3 years in a disadvantaged community. Like, what? And the issue with this is, like, if you were to try to make some sort of case to me about why you opted to go with this version of a student debt cancellation program, why this has merit, whatever. But like, this messaging is terrible. I mean, how are you even supposed to articulate that to somebody? If you're going door to door for this candidate, you're going to say, yeah, there's a student debt cancellation program for Pell Grant recipients who start a business that operates for 3 years in disadvantaged community. They've shut the door on you by now. I mean, it doesn't roll off the tongue the way that cancel student debt does. And that's the central issue with so many of the moderate centrist positions on these issues, is that you have this really disingenuous feeling like, focus group, like, these just really nibbling around the edges kind of proposals that people don't connect to. people can't even talk about them. They don't. There's so many complications to something like that it's not easy to actually sell that to people. Regardless of if it's the right thing to do or not, which I also think it's not, because rather than, this marginally helpful sort of policy that cancels some people's student debt in a really specific circumstance, we should just cancel all of it. Obviously. I mean, we have people that are paying like so much, astronomically high amounts of money just to receive an education that they need in order to make a decent living, not even a good living. We've got people who went to school for, like going into either, nursing or things like that have much higher student debt than most other people, and are still making wages that are still too low to be able to keep repaying those loans. This is a giant problem. It's going to completely affect our generation. We're going to be strapped with debt for the foreseeable future, and it's just increasingly frustrating to see that Joe Biden not only will cancel some student debt, so he's shown that he's able to do it. He has the authority, has the power. So all of these talking points he's making where it's like, I don't know if I have the power to do this, and like, Nancy Pelosi saying, I don't think he has the power to do it. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. He already has used the same power. Trump used the power too. Like he has shown that as president, by executive action, you have the power to affect student loan debt. And as president, Joe Biden has canceled some people's student loan debt. Very, very little, but he's canceled some people's student loan debt through this exact same process. So, I say this to say that at the end of the day, I think the vice president is very bad news politically for Democrats. Sure, are there plenty of people who support her and think that what she's doing is great? Of course, there are with any politician, but what I would say is that I think there's a really strong possibility, a very, very remarkably strong possibility, that internally Democrats are very, very, very concerned about what the future looks like if in 2024 Biden would choose not to run again and would instead sort of have a similar dynamic to 2016, where Obama had kind of said, Hillary is kind of the unofficial next term for the Obama administration. She's my endorsee to be my successor, and the idea was that you shouldn't challenge her. And so, of course, we saw how that played out. Bernie Sanders did choose to challenge her, and then, nearly became the president 2 times in a row, or nearly at least won the nomination 2 times in a row. And so I think the Democrats, if they're smart, are looking at 2024, and if it was me, I would say it's probably a really good idea to run an open primary, because I don't think Joe Biden is going to do well in a matchup against most Republicans in 2024. I also don't think that I think that Kamala Harris will do worse. And so, it really is something where I think we really need somebody who appears authentic, who people feel like is shooting straight with them. I mean, I think a lot of people saw the moment in the primaries where they asked every candidate to raise their hand if they supported Medicare for all. And of course, you had Bernie raising his hand, but I think on the debate stage, the way that they had done it, there were like 10 people one night, 10 people the other night. The night that Bernie was there, I think he was also on stage with Kamala Harris, and she also raised her hand that she supported Medicare for all. And people were like, huh, okay. And then they asked her, oh, wow, so you support Medicare for all? And she responded by saying, oh, no, I took the question to mean that if Medicare for all were passed, that I would opt in to that program to receive Medicare for all personally. Not that I would enact Medicare for all, which was, of course, just a ridiculously disingenuous response to that. Clearly, I mean, very clear that she was just trying to, basically pander to Medicare for All activists without actually intending on crossing the pharmaceutical companies or the health insurance lobby or any of these special interests, which is just, that was pretty much my point where I said, nope. And I think for a lot of other folks who care strongly about Medicare for All and taking on a lot of these special interests, that was a moment where people realized she's dishonest. And I think that as we go further, and especially as she's involved in more of these day-to-day things with the presidency, I think I don't think her political career is on a trajectory that looks very positive, to say the least. So we'll see how things go. We'll see how 2022 and 2024 look. But if it were me, I would be really, really thinking about running some progressives in 2024 in what may end up being an open primary, because I think there would be a really strong window of opportunity for someone to take on the establishment very directly and be able to push much, much further than what's happened in under the Biden administration so far.